Welcome to Chemistry Lab. My name is Dr. Kelly, and I'll be your instructor this semester. This welcome lecture applies to any of the labs I'm teaching, whether it's 145, 175, or 185. Because even though the contents are a little bit different and the labs are different, they're all provided through the same vendor. So the procedure of how we're going to work through this is going to be the same. First and foremost, let me give you a huge disclaimer and say that I think labs in the classroom setting are always better, not to mention cheaper. So if you have that opportunity to take a lab on campus as opposed to taking the lab online, I really urge you to take the on-campus class. At the very least, you'll save yourself $300. But having been said, I understand that the world has changed a lot, not just in terms of technology and work demands, but in terms of sometimes we have to socially isolate. So here we are. How this course is going to work is it's going to work a little bit like this. First and foremost, what materials do you need? You're going to need chemical splash goggles. You're going to need a cheap $10 or $12 scientific calculator. I would not use your expensive graphing calculator around chemicals. A periodic table will also prove useful. You can print one free off of Google. I cover that in your lecture section's welcome lecture on how to get a free periodic table. You can just go to Google, type in periodic table printable, and print one. Your hands-on lab kit. You can get your hands-on lab kit directly from the manufacturer, although I didn't say that, or you can get it through the bookstore. To get it through the bookstore, let me walk you through the procedure there. So let me go back to Chrome here, and I am going to go to Elizabethtown Community and Technical College because that's where I work, but you can go to your local community college as well. Go to bookstore. Bookstore, purchase books, order online. All right, go to the bookstore. Go to textbooks. You're wanting to order textbooks. Whoops, textbooks. Find textbooks. Here's where things have been frustrating in the past with this class. Sometimes it shows up under KCTS Online, and sometimes it shows up under ECTC. Let's go through KCTCS Online. So go through KCTCS Online. See right there, it's usually the first option in most drop-down boxes. Choose your term. When I'm making this video, it's a summer course. Choose your department. You're going to be in chemistry. Make sure you choose the right course. If it's 145, choose 145. If it's 175, choose 175. If it's 185, choose 185. Let's just do 145 first here. Next thing is you're going to see a whole bunch of sections. Make sure you choose the right section. If it's me as your teacher, and obviously it's going to be me if you're listening to this, I'm always one of the 25 Zs. So 25Z1, 25Z2. I'm always the 25Z1 or Z2. Do not choose one of these others. These will give you the wrong material, right? Do not choose any of those. Choose 25Z1, 25Z2, but choose one of the 25Zs. Same thing if you have me for 175. Choose chemistry, choose 175. Then again, you'll see a bunch of different options here. Make sure you choose the 25Z1. Please don't get confused whether you're in 45 or 75, right? If you're in 45, it'll say 145 at the top of your syllabus. Guess what? If you're in 175, it'll say 175 on top of your syllabus. They have two very different kits. They're not interchangeable. So make sure you order the right kit, and you can find it from the bookstore. Let me say that this kit is expensive. There's just no other way around it. You are buying yourself all the equipment needed to perform a chemistry lab. It's going to cost you $300 from the bookstore. If you buy it through the manufacturer, hands-on lab directly, it might save you a little bit of money, but not that big a difference, I don't think. It's just going to be expensive. You're having to buy everything you need to perform a chemical lab. So that's how you purchase your lab equipment. KCTCS Online Bookstore, 25Z1 is always my section, 25Z1, 25Z2. Make sure you choose the right lab, that you're in 145, 185, 175. Look at your syllabus. Look at your syllabus. You also need to order that kit right away. I often get people saying, can I wait a week? Not really. You can't wait that long because it has to get shipped to you most of the time. Even if you buy it through the bookstore, they're offering shipping it directly to you from the manufacturer. So it's going to take some shipping time. You need to have that kit within 2 weeks, really. I mean, it needs to be in your house, in your hands within 2 weeks, really, over the summer. Over the full semester, you've got like a 3-week window. So you have to get that kit ordered right away. Like, get that done today or tomorrow. So get that kit ordered. Once you get that kit ordered, let's take a look here. See. Oh, help. The best way to contact me is to use that question help message board. I go through the procedures for using the question help message board in a different part of this welcome lecture. Make sure you watch it. That's really the only way to contact me for help. I don't answer my phone. I answer emails, but the problem is emails tend to get buried. I get in excess of 200 to 300 emails a day because of my position. And emails can just get lost. I'm not trying to ignore them. It's just that I get so many emails, it gets pushed so far down, I don't realize I haven't answered it. To make sure that I see your email and I pay attention to you, I pay the attention to you that you need, deserve, and I want to give you, my number one priority really is helping you guys. Make sure that when you send me an email, you go to that question help message board in your lecture shell and post a message. I'm repeating a post that we'll have later. Course requirements. First thing you're going to do is you're going to take the ACF safety video quiz. So you're going to go to your course shell. So let's go to your course shell together. All right, we're in your course shell. Whoops, that's not your course shell. Let's go to your course shell. Here's your course shell. Let me go into student mode here. All right, so this is what you see. First thing you're going to do is you're listening to these welcome lectures here. You're going to read through that syllabus. Then you're going to take a quick syllabus quiz. Then I need you to watch the ACF safety video. Watch this video, pay careful attention to it. After you watch this safety video, you're then going to take the ACS safety quiz. Do 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 do. And it's not going to like me because I'm in preview mode. Just a second. Exit preview. Just a second here. I'll just close that out here. Exit preview. All right. Bear with me here, guys. All right, you're going to watch the safety video by following that link. Then you're going to take the ACS safety quiz. Important thing to realize, and I'll see why that box is dangling so that's working by the time you get to it, is you see notes down here at the bottom of this bunch of questions, you see check answers. You have to click check answer there. And after you finish all your questions, the true and false questions, you have to click check answer there. Make sure you click both check answer buttons on this safety quiz. And after you click both check answers buttons, make sure you click finish. If you don't, your score won't get recorded. You really need to take that safety quiz before you perform any of the labs. After you do that, download the safety waiver, read it, sign it, and then upload it and deposit it in the Dropbox. If you click this word safety waiver right here, that's actually a deposit box where you upload the Word document after you've signed it. If you do need help during the semester, there's that question help message board. All right, so that's the preliminary things to get started. How do you do the actual labs? All right, the actual labs are found by clicking the button that says labs. That takes you through to the manufacturer's site. And it will default you to whatever section of course you're in automatically, 175 or 145. This is just me, because I've got a bunch of different sections here. You're going to come in here and you're going to see a list of lessons. Here's where it is super important that you hear what I say now. Is everybody paying attention? What I'm about to say is super, super important. All right, I hope you're listening. You do not have to have your lab kit to do the lab getting started and laboratory safety. You can do getting started and laboratory safety before the kit arrives. Not having your kit is not an excuse for not doing getting started and not doing laboratory safety. You could do both those labs today if you wanted to. But after you do those two labs, you can't do any of the others until you get your kit. Now, when you get your kit, you're going to have a couple white sheets of paper in there with what looks like an invoice and instructions. Don't throw those away. Don't throw away any of the paper that comes with your kit. Couple of reasons. First, those pieces of paper tell you how to get supplies that may have been left out of your box accidentally. I can't give you any of those supplies. I do not work for Hands-On Lab. You have to follow the instructions on those white sheets to get anything that's missing. That's one reason you need to keep the sheets. The second reason is those sheets contain a computer code that you are going to have to put into Hands-On Lab to unlock the rest of the labs. You're going to have to go to, I believe it looks differently because I'm an instructor. You're going to have to go to my account and they are going to ask you under that my account to put in a code, I believe. You're going to put in a code and that's going to unlock your next lab. Now the labs after that first one won't unlock until after the first one, but they'll unlock the rest of those labs. So you need that sheet of paper to put in the code to unlock the rest of the labs. That's another thing. If you have a friend trying to sell you, and I use the term loosely, if you have a friend, quote unquote, who is trying to sell you a used kit, you need to consider what may be missing and what may be consumed. You also need to consider that Hands-On Lab is going to charge you for a new computer unlock fee. So buying a used lab kit may still wind up costing you the full $300, depending on how much your friend charges you for it. It may even wind up costing you more than $300. So be wary of used kits there. That's just a heads up and a warning. These labs, let's take a look. All these labs consist of, let's see if this one's, yeah. All of these labs consist of an exploration part followed by what they call exercises, followed by evaluation. The exploration part is a series of reading material that gives you the background to do the lab. Do not hurry through this portion. This is where you learn to do the math, some cases, that you need in order to do the lab. This is where you learn the information that you need to do some parts of the lab. So take your time in this exploration. Also, you'll take a little pre-test, and you'll take a post-test. The pre-test is not graded, the post-test is. So take your time with that. Let me go back here. Then you'll do the exercise phase. And unlike me, who can jump around, you won't be able to jump around to the exercise or the experiment part until you've done that exploration part. Follow these directions precisely. You must follow these directions precisely. If you don't follow these directions, your experiments won't work, and it just won't be good. So follow these experimental directions very, very precisely. After you perform the experiment, there'll be a series of questions that you're going to answer. And then after you perform your experiments, you're going to do an evaluation, and an evaluation is just basically a bunch of post-lab questions. Now, let's go back to student view. You will have over here in this side menu over here, in the student view, I don't have one because I'm not a real student in this class. You will have access to a gradebook. All your grades in this class are actually kept in a Mastering Chemistry gradebook. Once you submit those labs, I can go in and I can type comments and other things as they're graded. So you can understand why I'm deducting points and so that you can see your grade in the class. Also under grading, a couple things. Let's go ahead and look at your schedule. All right, here's your schedule for the lab. And what you'll notice for the schedule for the lab is that you see two columns. You see a couple columns. You see a lab number column, a lab, a due date, and an emergency date. So, for example, let's go down to the Getting Started lab that we saw. Lab number 2, Getting Started. You should do it on this date. If you want to pass the course, if you want to have a comfortable amount of time to finish everything, this is the day you should do the lab. However, it's not really considered late until this date. And then you see these columns in gray where I say grade date. The grade date is the date where I actually grade the labs. After this grade date, I will not accept any late work. For example, the grade date for labs 1, 2, 3 is the 6/15 for this semester. That is the date I start grading your labs. I will not accept any labs turned in after that time. Once I've started grading lab 1, you can't turn any more lab 1s in. The reason for this, and let me also say, I will not grade any lab 1s before this date. That means those of you who are working on schedule, you may sometimes have to wait 4 or 5 weeks before you get a grade on your lab. And I understand that can be frustrating from a student perspective, but it'll be less frustrating than you getting a bad grade because I wind up holding you to a standard I don't hold everybody else to. What it boils down to is, just like in a real lab, I have expectations for the results you're going to get. Sometimes my expectations turn out to be a little bit unrealistic. So I'll grade that first person whose lab they turn in. I'll grade it super hard and I'll say, oh man, they got a 5% error and they got a 10% error, and I'm going to fail everybody who doesn't get under a 5% error. So I'll fail the student in that lab. Well, I then will go on to grade 9 other people, and I'll discover not one person has gotten less than a 10% error. Well, is it fair for me to fail anybody who doesn't get under a 5%? No, that would be mean and stupid of me, right? So I will then go back and regrade those 9 papers, right, and change their grades. That's why I grade all the lab papers at a time. And you're saying, well, Dr. Kelly, why can't you go back and change it? Because I'll forget. Honest truth. I'll forget I'll forget what I've learned from the other people. I'll look at my notes and I'll begin counting that 5% as the standard. So it's really only fair to everybody in the class if I sit down and you guys as that way I'm holding you all to the exact same standard. Also, one of the things you're learning here is you're learning how to meet deadlines, right? So I'm holding you to these little sub deadlines of grading dates throughout the semester. So if you try to turn in lab 3 on the 17th, you're getting a 0 for it, right? I'm not going to grade it. So you have to have everything in by 6:15 or I'm not going to bother grading it. Then lab 4, 5, and 6 here, these would be due by this grade date, right? After that, I'm not going to accept anything for 4, 5, and 6. Let me say you don't need your lab kit for any of these, right? So as long as you have your lab kit here at your house, by the end of 2 weeks, you're good. If this is a regular semester schedule, you're probably looking at a 3-week window. But those are the grade dates. Guys, be aware, as I said, there is going to be a delay in grading. For some of you, for the first lab in a grading group, it may be 5 weeks before you get your grade on it. Whereas that last lab in the grading group, it may be like a 10-day turnaround. Also, it takes you around 2 to 3 hours to do each lab. It takes me around 3 to 4 hours to grade the class's lab papers for this. It takes me just as long to do the grading for this class as it does for you to do the lab. The grading program is like super hostile. I could do it a lot faster on pen and paper, as a matter of fact. They need to work on their interface, but that's my problem, and I'll put away the world's smallest violin. That's what you need to know about the grading and the deadlines. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to share with you. Oh, also, don't try to cheat your way through the lab. They have put in your kit certain things that there are some big tells on your labs where I can tell if you've actually done the experiment or not. Another thing I will tell you is for all your experiments, you're asked to record your results in some fashion. When you're asked to record your results in terms of describing a reaction with your words instead of taking a picture, there are going to be certain words I look for. There are going to be certain observations that I know anybody who performed that experiment is going to jump out, like, oh my word, it went from pink to bright green. If you just tell me your observation is, oh, there was a color change, come on, right? So be very specific when you're describing those reactions. That's just another thing. One last thing on the grading is when I grade lab papers, and I do the same thing for my face-to-face classes, I tend to go to extremes. I tend to wind up grading everybody either really fluffily, or I wind up grading everybody like, whoa, what's wrong with him today, right? Like, therefore, what I decide to do on labs is I tend to go to the, holy cow, why is he being so mean to us? Grading when I grade the actual labs. And then what I do is at the end of the semester, I curve you, right? And I curve you by looking for natural faults in the class, as in, well, don't worry about that. I guess the only reason I had up is, should you be thinking of dropping the class, communicate with me before you do so. You're probably doing better than you think you are. Now, some of you are going to be getting fine. You're going to wind up with A's all the time, not a problem. But if you're getting a B and you're used to getting an A and you're thinking of withdrawing, or if you get B's most of the time and you suddenly see yourself getting a little bit of a C, talk to me and I'll be happy to communicate with you about whether or not that's really a C that's going to wind up being curved to a B or not towards the end there. What I'm saying is don't let your lab grade scare you. People who put forth an honest effort in this class rarely get something other than A or a B. Now, if you do slop, where people run into trouble is they fall behind and don't do the work, or they slop their way through it, or they try to cheat their way through it. If you try to slop your way through it or try to cheat your way through it, you're going to fail. That's all there is to it. Otherwise, you're probably going to wind up with an A or B if you're doing your best and making an honest effort. That having been said, you do have to know the material. You do have to know the material from lecture. You do have to be competent in the things we talk about in lecture. You have to be able to do your sig figs. I'm an analytical chemist. When I talk about the sig figs and lecture, I expect you to remember those rules when it comes to lab. All right. That's about it in terms of the lab. I think most of the other stuff you really need to know goes from lecture. Unlike in lecture, where you hear from me probably more than you want to on a daily basis, thanks to my wonderful videos and YouTube channel, lab's a different animal. Lab really is a thing where you're taking those instructions from hands-on lab and you're working them. You're not going to see videos from me adding extra content here in lab. You're going to be reading the lab instructions, performing the lab. Matter of fact, this is probably the only time you'll hear my voice all semester. Let the morning process begin. All right, that's it. Why don't you write down Frankenstein? Write down Frankenstein.